All right. Well, I guess we can jump into it. So, first of all, let's just see how's everybody doing with the start of tax season so far. Anybody got any returns filed yet?
I got two waiting. They're just on the cusp. I'll get them. I'll get them done tonight.
Good deal. Good deal, David. Well, don't stay up too late working. It's too early in the season for that.
Just finished 1099s and W-2s, so I'm tired. Haven't even started tax returns yet.
Yeah, it's not fair that we have to do payroll stuff at the same time that everybody's so anxious for the for e-file to open back up in January, and I'm just in there thinking there's plenty to do until end of January. I don't need that e-file opening and back up too early. Got a couple filed and accepted. Slow for clients getting document this year. Yeah, that's kind of been a trend over the last few years. I feel like it definitely feels like it's taking a little bit longer and longer. So that's a good point, because the firm I'm in, Steadfast Bookkeeping, we're introducing a new workflow this year in terms of how we're getting started with returns. But I want to hear from y'all first. What, if anything, are y'all doing to control the incoming work and then the timing of when you're doing that work? Is it FIFO? Is it get to whatever comes in, whichever client is the angriest gets worked on first? Like what's your rule set for which tax return to start working on next?
I'm trying to figure that out.
Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I always try to start with first in, first out, but within about 2 weeks, that goes out the window.
Yeah, right, exactly. What ends up taking over?
Clients screening for their returns.
Yeah,
I do a lot of corporate accounting, and so sometimes the corporate accounting clients want their financials.
Yeah. Yeah, we work with a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was wondering how you handle. I just don't get all the documents at once. They trickle, and for the most part, because I have a checklist, a pro forma checklist of everything that I am, and they keep forgetting that now they don't get them in the mail. They get an email saying your tax documents are ready, and they ignore the email, and then I have to remind them you have to upload these forms, and you probably got an email telling you this. So it's kind of babysitting their paperwork. But I don't seem to find it's just, I send them a checklist. This is what I need from you. And they think they have uploaded it, and they really haven't even probably checked off the list. So I don't know how you guys handle that.
Yeah. Yeah, we work with a lot of small business owners, and so that and a handful of them are also dabbling in real estate. So that push to get mortgage applications and all that kind of stuff that always tends to drive the workflow, at least once we start really getting into the season. What else? Who else has got a system or a pseudo system for prioritizing returns?
I have all of my workflow through TaxDome. So as soon as they follow the steps, then it will hit either a queue for my data entry, and then once it's out of that queue, it'll go to tax prep, and then after it's done with tax prep, it'll go to quality control, and then it comes back to me. So essentially, once they're done, we don't really have to prioritize by date or time. It's just like, well, if you haven't completed steps 1, 2, or 3, then you got to wait on 4. And so that's what we're using. And we've had a couple people that have made it all the way through to the end already. And then
Nice.
We'll have a couple people that are right on the cusp, and they're just kind of waiting for the last documents before they finish those first steps in the process.
So for those who aren't familiar with TaxDome, which is it's a smaller and smaller number all the time, but it's practice management software. It's where for a firm you can do a variety of things in it. Our firm uses it also. This is the third year I think the firm has been using it, but this is our first year building out our workflows in there. Before this year, we were only using the document part of that, and then the chat part. So you can have all of your communication. It's threaded communication. It almost looks like text messages, or if you've used a chat app, it's built into that. And then also the document portal. So it's where they can upload documents. Also using the organizers built in there, which are like forms, like questionnaires. So have been using that. This is the first time that the first year that we're putting all of our workflows in there. And one of TaxDome's selling points is that they make it possible to build in a lot of automations into those workflows. So what David is talking about is if you think about an individual tax return, like a client's 1040 as a job working through this workflow, then that job is going to exist at different stages along that path, right? So it's going to start off as just not started. And then you think about how each stage that it progresses through in that job. One of those stages is you're just waiting for them to upload their stuff. And it's possible, depending on how you set it up, to either make it to where you decide, all right, it's ready to move on to the next stage, which would be something like ready to prepare, or let's actually start working on this return. Or you could build in some automations to maybe make it where that would automatically trigger. And so I guess, David, my follow-up question for you is how are you setting up that move from they're supposed to be uploading stuff or giving you information to now your system is telling you, okay, I can start working on this return?
Yeah, so the organizer is going to have conditional formatting. So if somebody is a new client and they select first year with mobile tax, then when they get to the stage where they're ready, they will get a link to my Calendly to schedule an in-person document review. So I'm a mobile tax preparer. So I actually go out to my client's house. And if they're an existing client, then they have three choices. They can either do in-person document review, they can do a virtual review, or they can do no review and just upload things on their own. So obviously in the in-person document review, they don't really upload anything beforehand. They just schedule their appointment, and then they click off a client task saying that they've scheduled it. And then it automatically moves into my queue to review the client information before going out to them. If they click no review, then it will just skip right through to tax prep.
Got it. So it's essentially the client telling you, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've uploaded everything. And then that sort of triggers the next step. Yeah.
And then we do have a hold, like a second tax prep. So we go through the first tax prep, but if they don't have anything, we'll send them a chat and say, let them know what we're missing. And then it'll go into a hold queue until they upload that.
Yeah. I realized that when I was using a different program, but similar kind of logic of thinking about the project in stages. And I quickly realized I needed an intermediate step that just going straight from everything's uploaded to prep to ready to review and send to client. There's a missing step in there of, wait a minute, they didn't get everything, we're still waiting on stuff. Sometimes that's, they just forgot to upload something. Sometimes that's they know, we know, everybody knows they're not going to get that K1 till September, but they still want the return done in March for some reason. They always act like they forget that. Yeah. Is it Sona? You got a chat here. Am I the only person who still prints all the PDF tax documents out so I can have them on actual paper on the desk in front of me? No, you're not. I don't. I never have, but I know people who still work that way. I worked with a preparer last year, and she keeps a manila file folder on her desk with everything printed off for that return, and the I talk about FIFO, the order of that stack of manila envelopes is the order that she's going to work in. And so if I need her to expedite a return, she goes through that stack, she finds a manila folder, she moves it to the top. And that's her system. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's perfectly fine if that's your system. If the returns are getting done timely, if you're staying up to date with the client communication, I got no problem with that. It's not so much, that you've got fancy technology driving everything. It's that you're actually getting the work done on time, and at the same time not killing yourself in the process. That's really, at the end of the day, all that matters as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so in our firm, we're trying out something new to us this year. It's not a new idea, but we're actually doing what we're calling scheduled document reviews. And we, about a month or two ago, we sent all of our returning clients an email with a link to essentially schedule a calendar appointment. But it's not really an appointment. It's not a meeting. Basically what they're saying is they're picking from a list of Mondays, basically from now through September. And we took the last 2 weeks and the first 2 weeks of March and April. We blacked those out. So about middle of March to middle of April is blacked out. And then all of July is blacked out. So nobody can book on any of those Mondays. But every other Monday between now and middle of September, we've got 8 appointments, 8 1-hour appointments scheduled that. And the actual time they sign up for doesn't matter either. Again, this isn't a meeting. There's no conversation happening here. Basically what the client is saying is, I guarantee that by the week of this Monday that I'm choosing, by the end of that week, I'm going to have all my stuff to you and you'll be able to start working on my return. And the flip side of that is we're guaranteeing that within 2 weeks following that Friday, that we will have the return ready, sent to you for review. You'll be able to sign it. Assuming you sign it, we'll file it as soon as we get that signature back. So that's a system we've set up to manage that. We don't know if it's going to work or not, but we're trying. It's an experiment. Right now, we've got about half of our clients have actually signed up for a date. We've gotten some confused responses. You don't have anything available before May. How are you going to file my return by April 15th? Well, we're not. That's the whole point. So we're automatically filing extensions for everything, even the ones that are able to sign up earlier. We're still filing extensions. We've got our reasons for doing that, but yeah, that's the system we've set up, and so we're hoping that sort of smooths out the workflow. We do a lot of accounting and bookkeeping in our firm also, so we don't really want a tax season. We want to maintain that workflow throughout the year, and at the same time, because we're planning on doing that, it makes it to where we can tell people, look, if I've got a preparer working for me, and his wife is due in middle of March, and unfortunately for a lot of preparers and a lot of firms, that would be an issue. For us, it's not. We know that's going to happen. We've got plenty of capacity to make up for that. So, of course, he's getting, some parental leave for a few weeks there in late March, early April. I've told some firm owners that, and their eyes just kind of bulge out when I tell them. I tell other firm owners that, and it's perfectly normal. So, we're all coming at all this from different places. So it's just interesting to talk and see what all these different firms are doing. Let's see. Emily says we use Canopy. Canopy is another option out there. I worked for a firm, I want to say about 6 or 7 years back, that used Canopy, and briefly used that a little bit. The other pros leave the documents in the client portal and enter info from there, or download it to another location, enter from the saved PDF. That's actually an interesting question. So once you get that document from the client and you've got those documents and you're ready to prepare the return, what do you do? Are you actually preparing it from there, or are you moving those to somewhere different? I like that question. It's a good question. I think that's a personal decision, depending on how many people you've got in your firm. If you're solo, it's a personal question. It's your personal preference. For me, I've worked in portals where it's very easy. They have built-in PDF viewers. Talking about TaxDome, you pretty much got a PDF editor. It's not quite as powerful as something like Adobe Acrobat, but it's probably 90% there as far as what you can do. You can leave little notes to yourself. You can highlight things. You can scribble notes on them. A lot of different things like that. And so if I'm working with a preparer and there's something in that form that I need to point out that they missed, or that they put it in the wrong place on the return or something, then I can make a note in the return, but I can also go back in that form and leave a little note for them and highlight the number and say, look, this is the amount you missed, or this is the amount that you put in the wrong place in the return, or something like that. So it makes it easy to do that. Or if you're getting those documents a different way and you don't have something like that built into your portal, maybe download it, put it into some sort of document management or file management system, and then you've got it there. Another option is using some sort of automated service. Gruntworks is an example that I worked with a firm that used Gruntworks, and Gruntworks will essentially take all of those files. It will identify what the different kinds of documents are. It'll reorder them and then put them all into one single PDF file that has a table of contents. And so you can go through and you can order that however you want. You can see all the W-2s. You can see all the 1099s. You can see, all of the other documents listed there, and then you can prep from that. So again, it's just sort of all personal preference and the degree to which you want to use technology to manage and help you with that. Anyone else got any have any ideas about how you're doing your client intake, your document intake, that sort of thing? Anybody else experimenting with that? Anyone else got any ideas about how you might change that up for this year?
Kind of quiet, huh?
I'm sorry?
It's kind of quiet.
Yeah, it's very quiet. I'm seeing some comments coming in here, though. Okay, so Tiffany says for clients who upload docs into our secure portal, it helps them to scan one doc at a time to show the docs. Then when I start to work on their tax returns, I use a program that's like Adobe Acrobat to add all the docs in one file. Sometimes sort the docs my preference. Yeah, that's pretty common. I see that a lot. You want one PDF that you can go back to for all those source documents, and then go through there.
Hey,
Okay.
This is Linda.
Mhm.
And I've got a small practice. I don't have, hundreds of clients. I have right now maybe 45 or 50 clients. So it's not like I'm managing, huge amounts of clients. I have my website has a secure portal on it. I have my clients upload their docs to there. I take those as they come in. I review them. I also have my quote working files are kept on Dropbox, which backs up automatically every night, and it's secure and all of that good stuff. And they're not held on my desktop. I have them so that it's held on. I can access it from my desktop, but it's held only in the cloud. But then I transfer everything up to there. And yes, I'm old fashioned because I'm an old lady. I do print out my documents and I plop them into their folder until I make sure I've got everything into their manila folder. And I do then, I go through it and review it, make sure I've got everything, compare it to last year's. But that's, then I know my stuff is secure. I know it's stored on the cloud. It's backed up every night. And I can access it either from my laptop, which is where my software is, Or if I need to get it, from manipulating the documents, sometimes it's easier on the desktop because I have a bigger screen that I can actually see. But that's how I do mine. And most of my clients are remote because I moved from California about 4 years ago. And so about half to 2/3 of my clients are still in California. I'll talk to them on the phone maybe, but a lot of them I don't, strictly online. And then I have some local clients that they're new clients. And so they like to come by and drop their stuff off and pick it up. And since they're local, that's fine because I don't have to go, we don't normally, then that a lot of them don't necessarily use Zelle or a check, but will actually hand me real green cash, which is nice too. But most of my payments come in through Zelle. Few clients pay with a check, but and no, I don't have a big giant, I don't have one of the big program managers or anything of that, the schedulers and all of that. I just know who I've got and I keep a list of it and I know I can tell from my file drawer who's been in and who hasn't because I know, last year's tax return the folder gets highlighted. So that's how I do my management.
Linda, if it works for you, like I said, if it works for you and it works for your clients, then I think it's a perfectly valid business model. I got no problem with that. Again, the printing the documents off, yes, of course, compared to what's available, you can say it's old school, but I don't know. I know 20-year-olds who still read paperback books. I prefer Kindle, but it's not because of any reason. We live in a small condo. I don't have a lot of space for a big bookshelf. I've owned lots of paperback books and hardback books, from college in those days. It's just, it's a lot easier. And I don't usually carry much around with me besides my phone. And so I've got my entire library of books there on my phone. I had to order, my first paperback book, or I guess print edition book is what I should say. Last week, Logic of Subchapter K. It's more of a textbook kind of book, but it's all about Subchapter K partnerships, that sort of thing. But it's just there's no Kindle version of it, so I had to break down and order the print version of it. But I think the same is true of our client work. I just took over as treasurer for our state chapter of a professional tax professional association, and everything that my predecessors had, all of their records all came to me in a big banker's box full of manila folders and paper. And so I spent the last a couple hours a week over the last month or so going through, sorting, arranging everything, and then scanning that in and digitizing it. Not because it's all old records, it's all done, but because I want to make sure that we've got that permanent copy of it, like you said, that's backed up, and so that's saved into our chapter's Google Drive documents, and it's there. So if there ever is a question, we don't have to worry about it. We're in Northeast Florida, we get hurricanes, and they can take out hurricanes and paper aren't a good mix. So so anyway. Good deal.
Paper has and real books have a lot of fun though, especially if you've got littles around, grandkids or toddlers or those, because they learn to read and write and all much better with a real piece of paper and a pencil or a crayon than they do. Yeah, they all have iPads and everything to play with, but they actually learn how to do those small motor things a lot of time better with pencil and paper and crayons and coloring books than online.
Our 7-year-old daughter has a bookshelf full of real books, so we're definitely not anti-real book. And the other thing, I will say this: sometimes I I do need to print some stuff out. A couple of examples is we work, like I said, we work with a lot of small businesses, and some of them actually are registered or incorporated. And when that happens, we strongly encourage them to go work with an attorney and get an operating agreement or a partnership agreement. And attorneys tend to use templates for these, and they tend to be pretty long-winded, and they tend to be pretty complicated in terms of all the cost references and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes for me, it's just easier to print that off and start marking it up. And that's how I'm going through those things. And I might do both at the same time. I might have the PDF up on my screen where I can search. So I'm searching for references to certain sections out of subchapter K, for example, right? You want to make sure they covered all the basics when it comes to the different partnership rules and regulations. But then at the same time, it's not. I have yet to find a PDF software that I really like to mark documents up in. I still find that really tedious on a computer. And it's just a lot easier to do that on paper. So I might, it's sort of a back and forth process. I'm searching through the draft on the screen. I'm finding that in the printed off version, I'm marking that up, and then I'm going back to the screen with the keyboard to type up notes on the different sections. So it's not one or the other. I think it's both, and how are you leveraging them against each other. And the same would be true for tax prep. I've worked with preparers and managers who they won't review a return on a screen. They print the whole return off, and all the main forms, the schedules and the worksheets and all that. We don't need to print all. Some of these returns now, they can be 80, 90, 100 plus pages. But maybe they'll print the 20 or 30 pages that are actual real forms and go through those and mark them up, and then put the review notes back into the software.
Well, part of it depends on how your brain works too, how your brain is wired. But yeah, and part of it too is the age that we came up in. And some of us are still more attached to paper than, I use the computer all the time, but there's still a certain thing about paper and pencil or pen and actually holding that in your hand. It makes somehow that makes the connection from the fingers to the eyes to the brain a little better than sometimes from a screen.
David makes a good point, though, that running out of ink or toner midway through tax season is not fun.
Always order new ink before season starts. Have at least 2 refills ready to go.
Set that calendar reminder way back in November, December. That'll be your Christmas present to yourself is new supply of ink or toner.
I do zero paper. I don't do any paper at all. Like, very rarely will I print out a return and get it to a client, and that's only if they have issues with e-file and we have to mail it in.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The software I use actually hasn't had much in the way of being able to review and mark up a return. So a lot of the professional software, you've got tick marks and notes and that sort of thing. The software I've used hasn't had any of that. They just introduced tick marks for this tax season, which is huge. Now the flip side of that is I've been solo up until about a year ago. So, if I was going to review a return, I was just going to review it. I wasn't leaving a lot of prep notes for somebody else, to go in and review. I was finding errors, and I was going and fixing those errors on my own. But yeah, now that I'm in more of a review position, it makes you think about the software choices and the workflow choices a little bit differently when you're working with other staff and reviewing their work as well.
How do you, Jeremy, on your firm, how do you guys make sure that all source documents have been entered? Do you have a checklist, check marks? How do you structure? Okay, since you're not entering the source documents, you don't even know if all of them have been received, collected, and entered.
Yeah, it's
accurately.
It's a good question. And I think it's one of those just, we can come up with strategies and workflows. I think at the end of the day, anytime we prepare a return, there's always that little nagging feeling that there's one more 1099 that, they just forgot to upload or something like that. But in general, so what do we do? Well, another, structural change in our firm that's different this year, and we started doing this about 6 months ago, rolling this out and introducing our clients to it, is we put a role into our firm that we're calling the Client Success Manager, CSM. And so that person, that role is mostly administrative, but it's also client relationship. And that person essentially becomes the conduit between the client and the rest of the firm. So all communication runs through the CSM. Now, it doesn't mean that we as the we call them the technical staff, the people who are actually doing the bookkeeping or doing the tax return preparation, that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean that we don't communicate with the client at all. It just means that we're not monitoring communication all day. The CSMs are doing that. And if there's something that comes up that they need help getting a response back to the client, or the client wants to meet with somebody to get into a deeper discussion about something like tax planning, or reviewing a financial statement or something like that, then the CSM can coordinate that conversation. But anyway, in terms of the actual tax return preparation process, the CSM is sort of the first review of what the client has done. So, like I said, we started instituting the document review process, and so that Monday, today is the first Monday that people could sign up for. So we've got 6 or 7 clients that today starts their document review. Right. So for those clients, the CSMs that are assigned to those clients, we have 3, and we basically took our client list and we divided it into 3 lists. And we did a little bit of making sure that they were kind of consistent in terms of, professions or industries or whatever. We tried to make it to where, but at first we just kind of divvied it up, pretty roughly. And so, the CSMs will have their clients, and they know when clients signed up for their document review week. So when they know that today, Monday, I've got a client that this is their week, so I'm going to go into their account and I'm going to see, one, did they fill out the questionnaire? The organizer that we send them again through TaxDome. Have they interacted with that at all? And TaxDome will actually show you they call it an organizer. It's essentially a form or questionnaire, but it will show you on that client's dashboard how many out of the total number. It'll show you that fraction of questions that they've actually responded to. So if we've got a tax return organizer that's got 68 individual things that they could respond to. Now they're not going to have to, because a lot of that is going to be irrelevant, and the conditional logic will take care of that, to where if they answer no, I don't own any rentals, they're not going to have to answer the 12 questions about rental properties, right? So it'll be a lot less than that number. But out of that, how many things have they actually responded to? And if it's still 0, on the Monday of the week that they're supposed to be a document review, then they're going to get a reminder. They're going to get a message from the CSM saying, hey, we need you to, this is the week you picked, right? And we didn't assign these weeks. The clients picked these weeks themselves, and we explained to them that, look, you're picking this, okay? So if you want your return done fast and early, that's fine, but you got to get us your stuff fast and early. And you're the one who knows when you usually get your stuff in every year, right? So you pick this week. This week, we're going to go in and see, have you filled out the organizer? Have you started uploading documents? Now, our CSMs, they're not technical experts. They're not tax professionals. So they're not going to be able to look through a list of documents and know if everything is in there. They're not going to be able to know if the return is ready to start preparing. But what they are going to do is see the documents that were uploaded. And clients have uploaded these, so the file names are going to be pretty pretty incoherent, right? It's going to be whatever the file name of that PDF they downloaded from the marketplace was, right? Or it's going to be whatever the file name their employer, automatically generated for the W-2 file that they downloaded. Or if it's pictures, that they took with their cell phone, it's going to be IMG underscore 0219, IMG underscore 0220, and just on and on. So the first thing the CSM is going to do is go in there and clean that up. They're going to go in, and we've got a firm document file naming convention. It's one of our SOPs, and it's saved there in TaxDome. They can anybody in the firm can go look at it, and it says this is how we're going to name every single document, and it's consistent across all the documents. And so the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at that list of documents, and they're just going to open them and start renaming them. Now, they know enough to know that, okay, this is a W-2 and this is who sent the W-2. This is the employer, right? This is the 1099 NEC and this is the payer, for that 1099 NEC and so on. So they can go in and do that. And then when they've done that for all the documents that have been uploaded, we also have everything that was uploaded for the prior year. And all of that stuff has been renamed too when we prepped the return last year. So now they can just compare those two lists. Now, it's not exactly a one-to-one, right? They might not get that W-2 again because they left the job in 23, and so we're not expecting the same W-2 for 24. Or they got a new client, so here's a new 1099 NEC. So it's not a one-to-one comparison, but it is a rough idea. Like you said, you're sending out organizers. It said, here's everything you gave us last year. We're going to kind of expect a similar amount of stuff in terms of just number of files from you. And so what the CSMs have been trained to do is go in there and just look and say, just roughly, if they uploaded 15 documents, if we wound up with 15 documents that, we took the time to rename and organize so that we could prepare their 2023 return, and now we're getting ready to do their 2024 return, and they've uploaded 4 documents, well, they probably haven't given us everything. We don't know that for sure, right? But we think it's a safe guess that they haven't uploaded everything. So again, they're going to get a reminder that says, hey, we need to make sure that by the end of this week, the week that you picked, you've uploaded everything. Then, what's the catch here, right? Because I keep saying they picked this week. They told us they were going to upload everything. What happens if we get to Friday of the week they picked and they haven't uploaded everything? And that's when we've got to make a call. If they're close, right, if they're very close, maybe there's just one document they haven't gotten yet, but we look back and last year they got that document around that time. Okay, we can be patient. We can assume that they'll get the document within the next week or two. And like I said, we're guaranteeing a 2-week turnaround. So we'll just assume, we can get that document. We'll send them a message and say, look, here's a caveat, right? We're still waiting on this one document. We'll go ahead and start working on your return. If it looks like there's just no way they're going to be able to comply and get us everything on time, then we're going to send them that scheduling link again and say, sorry, but you're going to have to schedule a different week. But now think about what's happened, right? Because they got that booking link a few months ago with all of our other clients who have signed up for their dates now. So when they go to reschedule, every appointment block that somebody else has scheduled is going to be blocked out. So they're basically going back to the end of the line. Only now it's middle of February, not back in November when they first got that booking link. So they're going to go back to the end of the line. They're probably going to pick a date that's later in the summer or something like that. Or maybe they'll get lucky and find an empty slot a few weeks down the road. And then, we've talked about this internally. There'll probably be some edge cases where we're just going to just move them back a week or something like that. We're not going to be harsh about this, but at the same time, it doesn't do us much good if we tell you to schedule a week and commit to having everything to us during that week, and then we just let you get away with the fact that you couldn't get us everything during that week. So we've kind of talked about this. We've kind of tried to figure it all out, but that's pretty much where we've come down on that.
Then once, let's say you have all the documents, you've met with the clients, you did the document review, all the documents are in, then the next step is tax preparation. But you don't do that. You do the final review, correct?
We've got preparers working for us. Correct.
And then when it comes to you doing the final review, what are you comparing the tax return to? Like a list of documents, or do you open all?
So we have
the source
checklists.
document?
So we have two checklists. So at first glance, we're comparing it to 23, the prior year. We always include the 2-year summary, and that's sort of just the first glance. Now the preparer does that, I do that, and so we're looking for significant differences and year over year, and can we explain those? Now, again, we're not saying that dollar for dollar everything should be exactly the same year over year. We're just saying that if it's a significant enough variance to notice just looking down those two columns, then we need to be able to explain that. Your wages are 50% less. Oh yeah, that's because you left that job and started your side gig, or something like that. So that's the first take. The second take is, I go through the documents that were uploaded, make sure that everything was entered correctly, that sort of thing. And then we have internal review checklist to just both a self checklist for the preparer and then a review checklist that kind of takes us through on the software side, to make sure that all of the elections were made, all of the check boxes were checked, all of the yes no selections were made, all of those kinds of things. And those are generic. They're not specific to the client, but they are just make sure we check the right thing given this client's particular situation in this case. So now I think what you're really asking is how do we know that we didn't miss anything, that we didn't leave something off? And at that point, you don't know what you don't know. And so if the client didn't upload a document and we don't have a reason to believe that we're missing any documents, then that's just kind of...
No. I'm just saying, you have, when you say you have checklists, is that like an Excel sheet that says there are 4 W-2s, there are 10, they have, some of my clients have, because they do small gigs, they sometimes upload, I've seen clients that upload 10 little W-2s. Yeah. And yes, you're right. They change year over year because they are working in different gigs and things like that. But then I know from Proforma what I am looking for. But at the end of the day, for the tax year, I am trying to figure out, okay, so I know that the client has already uploaded all the documents, the preparer has finished the return, and the return is ready for review. So it's like, okay, do we create an Excel spreadsheet that lists all W-2s with box 1, box 2, box 15, box 16, or then we go down 1099s INT, DIVs, BIBs, NECs, Q. I mean, do we just create this checklist on Excel and I just go and compare against the checklist? Do I open all the source documents?
You absolutely could do that. And I know there are firms that they and their software options that will automate this for you depending on your process. But I know there are firms that preparers never see source documents. Preparers don't prep based off source documents. They don't look at the source documents. The source documents go into a system, whether it's manual or automated or whatever, that will create the actual work paper. And the work paper is usually a worksheet, some spreadsheet created by Excel, and every entry is every type of entry. So like you're saying, W-2s, 1099 INTs, 1099 DIVs, 1099, consolidateds, whatever. Each of those is a separate tab in that worksheet. And so what they wind up preparing the return with is that work paper, not the actual source documents. That I've seen firms use that approach. I've seen software demos that will automate that. So that's one way to do it for sure. We don't work with that actually works really well for, I think it works well for more complicated clients where, like you say, they're getting multiple K1s, they're getting they've got multiple entities that are all feeding into this return. For me, I don't think we don't have enough clients and enough complexity in the returns that we're preparing to really do that. For most of our clients, they've got the pass-through entity, so the K1, maybe a W-2 if it's an S corp coming in from that. They might have another W-2 or two coming in, it's just relatively kind of straightforward, and there's pretty significant consistency year over year, to where, if we're looking at the pro forma, if we're looking at the 2-year comparison, we'll most of the time get there. And I will say that, every now and then, we get a client that comes back and says, whoops, I forgot to give you this document, 3 months after we already filed the return. It happens. It doesn't happen often enough for us to go back and change our processes based on it. David, I see you got your hand raised.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I was just curious about if you guys have a client class system. So you mentioned the client that, might need something, and, usually they're a great client, but you have to move them back a week. If you see that happening time over time, do you have a way of categorizing them to say, you know what, this person's done this 3 years in a row with us, maybe they're not a good fit? Or do you have any sort of client class categorization system that you're using?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so we're just testing this out. It's experimental, so not yet, but we are working on tracking a couple different things, right? I want to add this too, in terms of thinking about if we got everything. So another thing that we do is all of our returning tax clients. We have a handful of just one-off, or what might get called orphan 1040s, where it's a set fee. They pay us, they give us their stuff, we prep the return, and we just don't talk again for 50 weeks, right? Most of our clients are not that. Most of our clients are that we're doing returns for their ongoing clients, and we're in an ongoing relationship with them throughout the year. For all of those that we're in that ongoing relationship with, they also get at least one tax projection, and we're doing those in October, November. Some of them get another one that we'll do late spring, early summer, May, June, that time period. So we take the information from that tax projection, especially the second one, the one that's later in the year, and we do a couple things with that. One, we use that projection to prepare the extension. So an extension, technically, now I'm not saying you can't get away with it, because most do, but an extension of 4868 technically is not correct unless it actually includes a reasonable estimate of the taxpayer's liability and payments for the tax year, right? So in other words, you're not supposed to file 0 extensions. Now, and if you're just batch filing them out of the software, that's really all, you don't have any other information in the software, so it's just going to put zeros in for expected, tax liability. Everybody does this, it's fine. I'm not saying, you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying technically that is not a proper automatic extension request. There's supposed to be a reasonable, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But it's supposed to be a reasonable estimate of the taxpayer's tax liability. So we're using the projection to put that in. And the accuracy of that projection, or I guess the precision of that projection, just really depends on how much information we got from them back in November. Some of them just ignored us, right? Because, people will be people. But again, we work with a lot of small business owners. Most of them have accounting, so we just pop into their QuickBooks. And we take a P&L through the end of October, we annualize it, and we say, all right, roughly speaking, this is, and then everything else is just kind of same as last year, right? And it's not a good projection, but it's a projection, right? And based on the information we have, it's the most reasonable thing we can do. So we'll roll that into it. That if the client is cooperative, we give them an opportunity to have a meeting with us to discuss, what's going on that year, what are their goals, what are their intentions, what do they want to try to accomplish before the end of the year. If they meet with us during that gives us a ton of information about what we should be expecting, right, with that tax return. Did they move, right? Oh, so they moved to a whole new state. We've got clients that we didn't know until we had that meeting with them that they had moved to a whole new state. Well, I'd much rather find that out in November than the following February when they fill out the organizer, right? and those kinds of things, right? So that helps a little bit with the confidence in terms of preparing the return. Now, David, to your point, which now I'm circling back and I've forgotten.
It's okay. I was asking about client class.
Right. So one of the things that we're tracking is were they cooperative in that process? That's why I went into discussing all that about the tax projection, because that's sort of the first data point, right? Did they even care enough to let us help them come up with, a tax plan for the end of the year to figure out if they needed to make another estimated payment before the end of the year, right? That was another goal of that tax projection meeting. Are you going to wind up owing? Well, you would probably rather know that in November than waiting until March or April when you get your return from us, right? So that's the first column in that tracking worksheet of ours, right? Who actually scheduled a projection meeting with us? We sent out an organizer or a questionnaire for that. Who actually filled that out? Who gave us all that information? And they had the option, right? If they didn't feel like their situation was complicated enough, or they felt like, I could just email you what happened. I just kept going to work. Like that's all I did last year. That's the only tax information you need from me is I still got my job. Then we just sent them the questionnaire to fill out. Otherwise, if they did the call, we filled out that questionnaire for them, and we made sure that we had enough information from them to fill that out. So that's the first column in that tracking worksheet is did they go through that stuff with us, or did they just blow us off? Now, the next thing is when we sent out the scheduling link to book their document review week, did they actually book one? Like I said, we've only had about half of our clients so far schedule one. And we're into February. They're going to be, if they wanted their return done by April 15th, which we tried to, we've educated them that April 15th is in our firm, we say that April 15th is a payment deadline. It's not a filing deadline. We can get the 6-month extension. The real filing deadline is October 15th for 1040s. But even then, if you gave us the information we needed, you listened to us, we told you to make estimated payments or, change your withholding, and you did that, we put you in a position to where, you've either got virtually no balance due, or you might be getting a little bit of a refund. And honestly, at that point, who cares when we file the return? Now, I don't seriously mean it that way. We're going to file the return as soon as we can based on, when you're scheduling, right? But again, we're just reinforcing the point that, April 15th is a payment deadline. We want you paid up by then if we can to mitigate penalties and interest as much as possible. But we're not just fixated on filing the return. So then the question is, are they actually scheduling their appointment? And then it's a question of, are they holding to that appointment? Did they actually upload all their stuff? Did they answer the organizer by that document review week? Or did we have to tell them to reschedule? So after the first year, we're going to have essentially 3 data points. Right? Did they cooperate with us in terms of getting the projection done? Did they cooperate with us in terms of scheduling their document review? And then did they cooperate with us in terms of actually fulfilling their commitment to get us everything by then? Now, that's not a whole lot of data to make any serious decisions on, but if we come back around and those clients are all going to have another projection, this fall, some of them will have a second one, over the summer, or, they have the first one over the summer, a second one in the fall. And then we go through this round again. Now, after 2 years, we'll have 5, 6, 7 data points for all of our clients. You can, I'm not saying it's, 100% correlation, but you could start drawing some regression lines for some of those clients and just saying, does this make sense? And that's a decent amount now, decent amount of time to wait. But again, we're doing accounting for a lot of these clients too. And so we're doing a similar process, although, less intense, but we're doing a similar process every month, because we're sending them, we use a program called uncategorized transactions, and it will automatically notify the client if we have transactions in their QuickBooks that we don't know what it is. So we categorize it to uncategorized expense there in QuickBooks, and it will automatically notify the client that, hey, your accountant's trying to figure out how to categorize these transactions. Log into this dashboard. They don't go into QuickBooks. They go into Uncat, and they put in a little bit of information for every transaction. And then we see that, and we use that to categorize those transactions. So they're doing that on a monthly basis. We just got done with 1099s, right? Were they relatively easy to get W-9s from their clients so we could file their 1099s, or did they hedge and make excuses for their clients and not really want to give us W-9s, or not really, try to get W-9s from all of their clients? And so we're just kind of stuck holding the bag saying we can't file 1099s, even though we know you should based on looking at your book. So we've got a lot of other data points that we can combine with that. We haven't really merged all those. We haven't really tracked, formally tracked a lot of those data, but we're starting to. And then at some point we can merge all these data sets together. That's another point. A lot of these business decisions are just kind of gut reactions. A client gets a little, cops an attitude with one of your staff members. And we don't allow that, right? We set thresholds, and where a client is, where one of our staff no longer feels comfortable communicating with one of our clients, well, at that point, we're just not going to work with that client anymore, right? Why we're not here to put our staff through any of the. When I was solo, I took way too much, from a lot of my clients. I don't want to do that, and I definitely don't want any of my staff to feel like they've got to go through that, right? So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen, things like that. But that's kind of a gut reaction. What we're trying to move toward is actually being able to quantify some of that. Which are the clients that are good clients, and not just good in terms of, we like getting on calls with them because it's always a good conversation. That's part of it. But are they actually responsive? Are they giving us the information we need to do the work for them? I feel like I've been talking a lot. Sorry about that, but I guess we're all just kind of getting on here. This has been an interesting conversation, though. It's been interesting hearing how y'all are running your firms, what y'all are thinking about in terms of, that first step is critical, right? Just making sure that you've got everything in that you can start working on the return.
Jeremy, for next week, do you want to just leave it as a Q&A? Like, is this? I
actually saw. Is it Jolie had a question here, and so I do. Oh yeah, here it is again. Yeah, I got that question. This is a different one. So there was the one on R&D credit,
okay,
for partnerships, and then here is one on capital accounts on K1. Yeah, we can look at some partnership stuff next time. I can come in with some ideas for those questions, and then if we've got some time left, we can open up for Q&A.
Do you want me to send you the questions she has, or do you have them? Do you want me to get them from the chat, or?
Yeah, if you want to do that, that'd be great.
And I'll just send them to you. But okay. So for next week, I'll go ahead and put partnerships. And
sure.
If you want to just go week by week, that's fine, because I know that topics change and people have more questions one week than the other. So
sure.
And I think, isn't it partnership deadline February 15th, right?
March 15th.
For partnerships? Oh, okay.